Okay, this is your final review. There's, I believe, 5 pages. Each page is going to have an example and then problems underneath it that are similar. So the first one, example, the length of a rectangle is equal to 6.5 millimeters, and the width of a rectangle is 6 to the third millimeters. What's the area of the rectangle? Well, area is length times width. So the area is 6 to the fifth times 6 to the third, which reduces. Keep the same base, add your exponents, 6 to the eighth. So an answer might be that, or an answer might be what actually 6 to the eighth is. 1,679,616 millimeters. Okay, try to do 1 and 2 the same. Next example. Evaluate, meaning simplify. 4.1 to the times 10 to the third times the quantity 6.2 times 10 to the fourth. Express the product in scientific notation. So we have 4.1 times 6.2 times 10, it's all being multiplied to the seventh. So 4.1 times 6.2, that's 25.42 times 10 to the seventh. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's moved over 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One more 7. Okay. So it could be this or it could be this. All right. Try. Oh, it says to express the product in scientific notation. So this is the number. Is this in scientific notation? No, because it's 25. What you need it to be is 2.542. Well, since it was to the seventh, we moved it over one more, so it's going to be to the eighth. Okay. Try 3 and 4. I'll be posting the answers. Example. Simplify b to the 6th over 4a to the negative 4th, all raised to the second. Assume the denominator is not equal to 0. So 6 to the second, it's 6 times 2, which is 12. 4 to the second, a to the negative 8th. B stays. This becomes an 8. The negative 8 moves to the top, and that is your answer. Complete the next 2 similarly. On the back, simplify. Assume the denominator is not equal to 0. Well, I'm going to move all the negatives first. So the 10 would stay since it's technically to the positive first. The 6 would go, so now it's positive. The y would go, now it's positive. The 2 stays. The 9 goes to the top, now it is positive, and the y actually stays on the bottom. So when it is simplified, 10 divided by 2 is 5. 9 minus 6 is 3. It stays on top because that's where the 9 was. And this is y to the 6. You add your exponents. Complete 7 and 8 the same. Next example, which is another way to express the square root of 49? Technically, that 49 is to the first. And technically, this is a 2 here. We just don't write it. So this is the same thing as 49 to the 1/2. So if there was a 3 here, let's say, then it would be 49 to the 1/3 and vice versa. Okay. All right, so complete 9 and 10. And then the next example, it says to simplify. So anything that's an a squared, b squared goes together. We have a negative a squared, b squared. So it's 4a squared, b squared, since it's a negative 1. I have a negative 2ab squared and a 7ab squared, which is a positive 5ab squared. Then we have a 10 and a negative 11, which is negative 1. Number 11, we're going to combine like terms. 9 and a 3 is a 12x squared y squared. Then we have a negative 2xy squared and a 7xy squared, which is a 5xy squared. Then we have a 7 and a negative 6, which is a positive 1. Negative 4 and a positive 5 is a positive 1x squared y squared. A 2xy squared and a negative 11xy squared is a negative 9xy squared. Oh no, I made a mistake. Here, be careful. I have this quantity, but I'm subtracting everything inside here. So now this becomes positive. And now this becomes positive. That's why I was completing these ones to do this one with you. So this is going to become a negative 9x squared y squared. It's going to become 13xy squared and a 14. My apologies. Okay. All right. You know what? Let's just go back and redo all this. So pause the video. You should be pausing the video after each example and completing it. If you haven't done that, do that. So look at that example, complete these two. I'm just going to go over it completely when you're done. All right, let's come back to the video when you've done that. The length of a rectangle is 2 to the 4th. The width is 2 to the 3rd. What's the area? Multiply them together. 2 to the 7th, which is 128 millimeters. Same thing here. The length of a square is equal to 3 to the 7th. Well, a square, length times width. If the length is 3 to the 7th, you know the width is 3 to the 7th. So that's 3 to the 14th, which is 4782969. It's pretty big. All right, millimeters. We're talking about scientific notation here. Let's go back up to the top. We have 10 to 2.4 times 6.3 times 10 to the 8th. Well, 2.4 times 6.3 is 15.12 times 10 to the 8th. That would be fine, but we always have to have a number less than 10 here. So 1.512 is what it needs to be. So since we moved it over one, it's 10 to the 9th. Here, 9.2 times 1.5 times 10 to the 8th times 10 to the negative 3rd. Well, 9.2 times 1.5 is 13.8 times, this is going to be 10 to the 5th. And we need to be 1.38, so it's going to be now 10 to the 6th. Down here, power to power we multiply, so that's a to the 9th, 3 times 3. 4 is technically to the 1st, so 1 times 3, it's 4 to the 3rd over b to the 12th. 4 times 4, 16 times 4 is 64. Okay. All right, that's this answer. And number 6, power to power multiply, that's x to the negative 6. Technically, that 5 is to the 1st, now it's 5 to the negative 2nd, and y to the 8th. Okay, so 5 to the 2nd, x to the 6th, y to the 8th. 25, x to the 6th, y to the 8th. Here, we move things. 20 stays, 6 goes, y goes, 4 stays, 7th goes, y. 20 over 4, x. 7 minus 6 is 1, y to the 4th. Well, 20 divided by 4 is 5, so 5x over y to the 4th. like I said, you should be pausing these and making sure you're doing them on your own. So you see if you did make a mistake where your error lies and you've learned something. If you just simply copy what I have, you're not going to realize what you need to do. All right, number 8, 5, 125, they both stay. But the negative needs to go, the positive stays, and the negative needs to go. So this is going to become y to the 8th. This is going to become x to the 1st. 5 goes into itself once. 5 goes into 125, 25 times. What's another way to express the square root of 36? Some people would say 6. Or the same way is 36 to the 1st square root, which is another way to express 64 to the 1/3. Third root of 64, which is 4. Depends on what the multiple choice answer is on your test. Okay, so this is the first final exam review. The second, it's the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an example. You're going to pause the video. You're going to do 13 and 14. Then you're going to play the video again and see if your answers are correct. So first one you need to distribute. You're going to get 14, a to the 3rd b. Because you add your exponents. Negative 2 times b. Well, technically there's a 1 here, so it's a negative 2. There's no other a's. I have a b and a b, so b squared. 2 times a 5 is a 10. There's no other a's and a b. So pause the video, try 13 and 14. 6 times 2 is 12, x to the 3rd y, minus 18x squared y squared, plus 24x squared y. 12x to the 3rd y, minus 16x squared y squared, 2x cubed y. Here, we're going to FOIL. First, outer, inner, last. That's just distribution, double distribution. So there's no other z squareds. There's a z and a z, which is a negative 6z and a negative 16. All right, I want you to pause the video and try 15 and 16 on your own. M times m is m squared. M times 5 is 5m. Negative 5m. Negative 25. There's no other m squareds. The m's cancel each other out. So now it's the difference of two perfect squares. M squared minus 25. Here, a squared minus 5a minus 8a plus 40. So a squared minus 40a plus 40. Ooh, why did I do that? I multiplied them together. That was a big fat no. 5 and 8 is 13. Okay. What is the least common multiple of these monomials? Meaning, what is the smallest number that these two can go into, not what they have in common? So 3x squared y cubed is this, and 7xy squared is this. So the number that they go into needs to have a 3, a 7. They have to have at least an x. Well, then they have another x, so have to have at least x squared. They have to have a y, and another y. So 21x squared y cubed is the smallest number that these two can go into. Now some of you might be like, oh, x squared and x, so x to the 3rd. You don't need x to the 3rd. 2 is the largest number, so that's what you have. Okay, pause the video, and I want you to try 17 and 18. Biggest one is y cubed. Biggest one is x squared. 9. So you don't have to do this process to get the answer, but that's beneficial if you don't know what you're doing. Okay, this 2x can go into each part. So 18x cubed over 2x minus 6x squared over 2x plus 2x over 2x. What's that going to give me? 18 divided by 2 is 9. There's 2x's left. Minus 3, there's 1x left. And anything divided by itself isn't 0. It doesn't cancel. It actually simplifies to a 1. You try the next one. All right. The next example, we're going to factor. If there's 4 terms, something should signal a certain method, but let's look. Is there a GCF? Always take a GCF out first if you can. No GCF. No, 5. Well, there's no 5 here. X. Well, there's no X here. There's 4 terms, so grouping should go off. Oh, 4 terms grouping. These two share an x squared, so you're left with 1x, and you're left with a 5. Beauty of math is that you can check your work. So x squared times x is x cubed. X squared times 5 is, yep, that works. All right, between these two, they share a positive 5. When I remove a positive 5, I'm left with x plus 5. Distribute back to check. Yeah. The whole point of doing this is that they have now an overall GCF of x plus 5. If I remove the x plus 5 and factor out, I'm left with x squared plus 5. And this is your answer. This broken down is this. Try it for the next two. If I have an x plus y here, I better get it again. If I don't, I did something wrong. This is the same thing. Now we're factoring a trinomial where a is 1. The number in front of x squared is what we call a. So we unfoil factors, what I call it. That's not really a good term. If you have 3 terms with a plus in the back, this sign will double up. Yeah, because a positive times a positive is a positive. When you add them, you get positive. So factors of 56 are 8 and 7. Yeah, they add up to 15. You can always FOIL back to check your work. X squared plus 8x plus 7x plus 56. Yes, this is the same thing as that. Here we're going to do the same thing again. Do you have 3 terms with a plus in the back? Yes. So your sign will double up. So it's minus minus. Well, factors of 56, 7 and 8. Yes, it gives me 15. Here we're going to do it again. Do you have 3 terms with a plus in the back? I do not have 3 terms with a plus in the back. It's minus. So one of them is minus and one of them is plus. The bigger number is going to be the negative because that's what comes through when you add. Factors of 21 are 7 and 3. Yes, that gives me 4. So 7 is going to be the negative. And here, last one, factor. Oh, I see there's a GCF of 3. So take that out first before we keep factoring. Now I can still keep going. It's a difference of 2 perfect squares. Square root of 25 is 5. Since there's no middle term that got canceled out, one has to be positive, one has to be negative, or vice versa. It doesn't matter. Here, we can take a 4 out first, and it's the same thing. It's a difference of 2 perfect squares. So one's going to be negative and positive, or vice versa. 2 and 2. And lastly, the difference of two perfect squares, m, m. The square root is m, the square root is 1. Minus positive or positive minus. It doesn't matter. But that's your final exam review too. Submit both of these. If you are in my spring 2021 Algebra 180, you're submitting it into the folder. If you're not, then just follow the directions that I give you in class or is on Google Classroom.